everybody. Right here I have the Prelude strings by D'Addario, and I am planning on doing a comparison video between these and the Dominants, but I thought before I get to that, I'll make a video all about on how to change your violin strings. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So this is going to be a little bit tricky with getting the camera angles just right, but I hope it works out. The strings that I bought, they come in a package like this, and they're all together like this. Usually with pretty much every other brand of violin strings, they come in separate packages for each individual string, so that way you for sure do not get them mixed up. But this, it's all in one package, and then it has the label at the bottom with what colors correspond with what string. And I want to start with the G string. So on here, G should be red. So I'll just pick out the red one here and unwind it. So that way it's ready to go. So for the G string, you just want to start with unwinding. And make sure that all of your strings are in tune beforehand, because you only want to take off one string at a time and replace it. You never want to take off all strings at once. This is a very common mistake for people who start off with learning guitar and then learn the violin, because with guitar it doesn't matter, but with violin it's very important because your strings are what is keeping your bridge up, and it's also adding pressure onto the violin. So that way the sound post that is inside here, if you look inside the hole, you'll see a little stick that's in between the two parts of your body inside here. It's wedged in there, and the only thing that's keeping it up is the pressure from your strings. If all your strings are gone, that will collapse, and then you'll have to send your violin into a luthier in order to put it back into place. And that's an expense that you can avoid if you just change your strings properly. Anyways, that was my little tangent. So you just want to pop it out, and you want to save your old strings simply because it's good to always have a spare in case if you accidentally snap a string. So I'll put this off to the side here. And here's my G string. First, put it into the hole here. So start at your fine tuner end at the tailpiece. You never want to start at the peg. So start at the tailpiece, pop it in, and make sure it's in line. Then you want to put your string through the hole in your peg. Oops. This can be a tricky part. And sometimes the string will pop out of the tailpiece. That's fine. You just want to put it back in as soon as you can. There. Now I have it in. And then you just want to turn it. Okay. And you want to get it so it's winding a little bit closer to your peg box here. So that way the peg holds. If it's out this way as you're winding it up, then your peg is more likely to slip. So you want to angle the string this way towards the peg box as you turn the peg. Oops. And see, it's already popping out already. So let me get that back in here, and I'll start winding it up, which feels a little awkward to me because of the camera angle, but that's okay. Okay. So getting in there. And you want to make sure that it's in the little groove at the nut and sitting in the groove at your bridge as well. we want to get it to be as close as in tune as possible before we move on to the next string. I have an app that plays notes on my phone here. So that is an octave up. Okay, so that isn't quite where it needs to be yet, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. So now for the next string. It says here that D is gold. So I'll pick out the gold one here. So that's my D string, and I'll unwrap that. Now, same thing for the G. I want to first unwind the peg. And just pull it on out here. And when I save the string for later, I just loop it around in a circle like this. So again, first, pop it in the tailpiece, or in your fine tuner if you're using fine tuners. And then make sure it's in the groove in the bridge. And up here. And you want to put it inside your peg. And just start winding. And again, you want it to lean towards your peg box, so that way your pegs do not slip. My pegs tend to be a bit on the tight side because I live in a climate with a lot of moisture. So if your pegs tend to be a bit too tight, maybe you don't want it to be as tight against your peg box here. It's all a matter of figuring out the balance. Okay, so that is now in, and then again, I want to tune both of my strings as close as tune as possible before I move on to the next string. You want to push your peg into the peg box as you turn, right? Push and turn. It's a little bit difficult for me to do this at this angle with the camera, but that's what you want to do, so that way the peg doesn't slip. And now I'm going to go back to the G string to test it out again, because it's obviously not going to stay in tune. I'm having a little bit of troubles with that peg because it's sticking a bit. I'll worry about that later, but for now I'll move on to the A string. On the package, it says that the A is black. Here's the black one. Okay, so I'll just pop this right in there. Maybe I should hold it closer so you can see. You just put it in the hole and then stick it up top so that way it catches in there. Make sure it's in line with the bridge. And then feed it into the hole in the peg. And then hold it closer to the wood of the peg box and turn. And as you get going, start pushing the peg into the peg box as you're turning. And now we want to tune it. we're not worrying about whether or not is it exactly in tune because these are new strings. And then we want to go back down to the other two strings to tune again. A little bit sharp, but close enough. And now the E string. Now, the E string is the most trickiest string to change. Simply because if you look at my peg box here, the E string you see it's hiding underneath the A string here where the hole is to get it into the peg. So that's what makes it really tricky to do, but not impossible. So let's undo this and pull the string out. And here you see it has a ball end, right? With strings, it comes in both a ball end and a loop end. The variation mostly is with the E string. For most other strings, you'll want to ball end like this. And then for the E string, if you need a ball end or a loop end, it really depends on what type of fine tuner you have here. So you can see on my violin that I have a ball end fine tuner. So that's what I use. The other thing that makes the E string hard, if you don't already use fine tuners at the tailpiece for all your other strings, putting the string into a fine tuner can be trickier and more difficult than if you're putting it straight into the tailpiece. For my brand of fine tuners, it's not too bad. If you're using a tailpiece with fine tuners that are built in, those I find are a little bit trickier. But it's the same idea. You just need to kind of wedge the ball piece into it, and then it should hold. So what you want is your string to be wedged into the little piece in the middle of the fine tuner, and then the ball is sitting on the other side. So like that. And before you take the string out, really examine what it looks like to have the string in place. So that way you have a good visual of what you're supposed to be replicating, because some fine tuners do look a little bit different from this. The other thing to watch out for with the E strings is some of them, they come with this little plastic piece on the string here, and that's just sitting there, right? What this is for is it sits right at the bridge here, like that. So that way the string isn't digging too much right into the wood of your bridge because it's so thin and sharp. The E string is a little bit trickier to do for many reasons, but all you have to do is feed the other end in to the peg, and you might need to pull the peg closer away from the peg box in order to get this through to the hole, right? In order to avoid the A string here. So it should look like this, right? So now it's out again. I just pulled it out, and then now it's in, and then I'll start turning. Like that. So I'll start turning. It hasn't popped out of the tailpiece end yet, so that's good. And as it gets tighter here, I'm just holding it up. I make sure that the plastic piece is sitting right where it needs to be. And then I'll pull the string so that way that plastic piece doesn't go sliding around somewhere else as I finish tightening. There. And now this little plastic piece isn't going to go anywhere because the string is tight enough. And then I just proceed to tune my strings. So with my E string here, it's not in tune yet, right? So what you want to do is first get it as close to being in tune at the peg end, and then do the rest of the tuning with your fine tuner. And once you get all of the 4 strings on, they're going to go out of tune really, really easily. Okay? It takes a few days to maybe a week of constant practicing every single day until the strings settle. Now this kind of varies depending on which brand of strings you get. Some brands of strings settle faster than others, but yeah, it should take a few days up to a week, and then it should be fine. And that was my video on how to change your violin strings. If you found it helpful, please leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.